Hey everybody, Kevin Shortle here with another episode for you of the Real Estate Without Renters podcast. As always, I appreciate you listening to the show and also sharing it with a friend, with your social media groups, real estate investment clubs, real estate note investment clubs. In fact, any place investors are gathering to learn about this great opportunity. And please give me a nice rating on the show. It helps me grow the show, helps me attract sponsors as well. All right, on this episode, it's going to be rather unique. So I wanted to do a preview here to let you know what this episode is all about. So let me set that up for you. I was recently interviewed at a MasterMind group out in California that Desi runs. And at this MasterMind, they want somebody to come on who's an experienced investor that's been around the industry and that can help people and motivate people in this. So I was interviewed. In the beginning part of the interview, it's about my background. And I thought you all, especially those of you who really don't know me and just learned about my podcast through social media or YouTube or whatever you learn this from, and you don't know a lot about my background, perhaps, I think this will be pretty enlightening in the first portion of this. But towards the end, as we start to grow through this interview, I talk about the industry as it is now, but also how I see it moving forward. And you're going to absolutely be blown away about what's coming down the road. In fact, nobody else in the industry is teaching it. Probably doesn't even know about it, but I'm a student of the marketplace. I'm known for doing state of the industry addresses for our industry. I'm known for the research that I do on staying top of all of the trends and the statistics and everything else. It's just something that I do and have done for the last 15 years in this industry. The program that I lead up to on this, my podcast is only the third place I've ever talked about it, and I'm sure once it hits the airwaves, then everybody else in the industry is going to jump on board and they'll start to talk about this and teach this as well. It's something I've been tracking for well over a year. I did deep research about if a program such as this was going to come along. I had a strong inclination for a variety of reasons of why this program would, and my clients that work with me in my membership base, they've been knowing about this for about 6 months. I hadn't talked about it at all outside of my private clients. However, after my clients were all caught up, got all the latest information and already had set some things in place, I felt it was time to start to share it more with the industry. So I brought it up at an event that I did several weeks ago. That was the first outside audience of my private clients. And then the second one was this interview for this MasterMind group out in California. Well, I say it's out in California. That's where Desi is, but there were people from all over the United States. In fact, in the beginning of this, which I've edited out, everybody was introducing and what's going on in their area. So I've edited down to the part of my interview. So you will be, my listening audience on this podcast, the third place that I have put this information out. And I'm sure, again, it'll start to get out there to the entire industry. But remember, hey, you heard it here first, right? That's one of the things that I do. And again, if you're interested in becoming a client of mine, please give me an email. It's just Kevin at Kevin Shortle. Remember, that's KevinShortle. So it looks like Shortle, but kevinshortle.com. And we'll set up a phone call and we'll talk and we'll see if this industry is for you. We'll see if my consulting program and educational program is for you, if that's something that you would like to do in the industry, and the results of how I do this, because I work with people one-on-one, not group coaching, although I do group coaching twice a month. That doesn't get you the same results as personally working with somebody from start to finish through troubleshooting and everything else through these deals. So if you're interested in that, let me know. In the meantime, listen to this interview. And again, it'll start off about how I got started in the industry, how I've grown within the industry, but it's going to grow into this interview about what's going on in the industry and now, and especially this special program. So enjoy that. And thank you once again for listening to the show. And I look forward to putting together another episode for you very soon.
I'm going to let you go because I definitely want to see what my friend Kevin has been up to.
Yeah, Kevin, go ahead, unmute yourself, buddy. Thank you for coming on, spending your time this Saturday.
Absolutely. No, it's a pleasure to be here. Good stuff.
Yeah, man. Thanks. And
Hello, Mr. Shortle.
How are you doing, Desi?
It's
been a while.
man. It's been a while. Good to see you.
Good to be seen. Good to see you as well.
Kevin, I know we know you pretty well, and I've seen you I've seen you grow. I've been in the industry about 3 straight years now, but I've even seen in the last 3 years you crushed it, and you've been crushing it. So for the folks that are here live today that don't really know you yet, even though that's almost impossible if you're in the note space, but if they don't know you yet, maybe you can give a little bit of a background on yourself, maybe even prior to finding out about notes and who Kevin was and as a person, and then maybe when you found out about notes and how that experience went.
Sure. I always had a keen interest in real estate in general, way back since high school, and so real estate was always my thing, my focus. And I got started a little bit in investing in real estate, and I went through all the same struggles I think that most people do when they're starting out, especially when you don't have any money, to buy real estate and everything is like, and it's tough, and it was tough back then to get started. And I met a guy who just made like $15,000 and in the real estate, but he said no, it was a real estate note. So I said, well, what does that mean? And he explained that to me. And once he hit all the benefits of, I never saw the property, I didn't have to do this, I basically just brokered the note, essentially wholesaled the note, put a buyer and seller together and made about 15,000. And I was like, well, that's pretty impressive. I'd like to get some of those checks going. So ended up partnering with him in business, and we started doing the note business. And again, since we didn't have capital, I always say to this day in all my trainings and such, I always tell people it's not the money in this business, it's the ability to identify a deal. If you have that skill set, then the money will be there, because plenty of people that are direct sources, other investors that are looking for deals. It's identify that deal, put it together in a fashion that you can explain it to an investor, and that's really how I started in the whole thing. And the natural progression back then, I mean, we're talking 30 years ago. We didn't have the technology, so we didn't have the internet, we didn't have trading platforms, we didn't have tapes. You had to physically go to the courthouse, and you had to look for deals. And I've been to dozens and dozens of courthouses, and sometimes they had them on microfilm. You guys remember the old microfilm?
Microfiche, right? That microfiche.
Yeah, microfiche, yeah, all that stuff. And sometimes it was just books. And so it took a lot of effort. And then finally a database company came around. And that's what led me into the training side of the business, because I said, well, I can teach people how to market these lists of people who own notes to see if they want to sell them or not. So I put together a small, what was the name of my first program? The Hidden Cash Flow System was the name of it. And we started selling that and build a bird dog network. So people would find the deals, they'd submit it through us, we'd place it with a buyer. And then I don't know, this is going way back, so some of you might remember this person, some of you might not, but Charles Givens. If you go back to the late 80s, early 90s, Wealth Without Risk, he was one of the first guys in the infomercial type of commercials that he was doing there. And he bought the publishing rights for my first program. And that's what was all built upon that a long ago.
Yeah, it goes to my point though, that you've been in this game for a real long time now. You're truly somebody that's been, setting the way for all these new people getting into the industry, right?
Yeah, there's been changes and ebbs and flows in the business. We're on the cusp of one right now. I got away from notes for a period of time simply because of inventory. I mean, we just didn't have the inventory that we have. We didn't have the accessibility. We didn't have the Dodd-Frank Act that is moving our inventory. We didn't have any of that. So it was all seller finance properties, and it was mostly back then unusual properties. Something that wouldn't finance. So the to sell it, they simply had to do seller financing, and we would find ways to buy that. But we bought a bunch of cool stuff too. I mean, we bought lottery winnings, casino winnings, royalties, professional football contracts, lawsuits. I mean, they're all cash flows. They're all backed by something. And so we did a lot of that as well. So then focused more on the real estate notes. But today, having the accessibility and the laws and technology, it's a fantastic business. So I swung back in many years ago.
Yeah, when was that? How far along ago did you get back into notes? When did you kind of take a break?
Probably 15 years ago. Probably about 15 years ago, got back in. When I got out of notes, it was really because of inventory. There was too few deals and too many people chasing too many deals, and I got back into real estate investing. And I found a way, because I really study the market. And as you know, I do state of the industry addresses all the time because I do study the market and what's going on. And back then, I found in HUD a way that I could buy HUD properties at 50% off of what HUD was asking. And I got the first right to bid before anybody. And I did that by going through the HUD guide. And I found a little a way where I could partner with a nonprofit entity. And nonprofits get to bid first, way before investors do, way before even the homeowners do. So you automatically got a discount of about 40% off of HUD properties. But if you bought 5 at a time, you get another 5%. You buy 10, you get 10%. So about 3 buying cycles a year. About 5 buying cycles per year, which would be about 50 properties a year on HUD. And we just, we were cranking it out. And unfortunately, they stopped that program after about 5 years. So it was a good 5-year run. And then I started lending money, doing hard money loans, and put together a small fund on that. And then, then the market crashed. And when the market crashed, it really back 2008, that's when I saw the opportunity. So I guess it's around 2007 or 8 when I got back into notes of, full time, buying the notes back then. Yeah.
Good leeway, but I wanted to continue on what you just said. You do give state of the industry addresses, and you really study what's going on with the markets and everything, and you give so much helpful information to people about that. You got you said back into notes right around the crash, and prior to that, you had this good run doing what you were doing. Speaking of the state of the industry with notes right now, right, and the real estate market and everything, does this have a similar feel to 2006?
Well, there's a couple of things that I'm excited about moving forward in the industry. The first thing is the industry's matured considerably. Notes are considered their own asset category now. So we have people coming from, the stock market background who are getting into notes, which you never had before. You got Robert Kiyosaki talking about, owning a business and notes and real estate, so you've got some high profile people that have recognized that, and that's drawing more attention to our industry. So that's one progression. We now have built-in inventory levels that are going to be strong and steady into the foreseeable future. I don't see it changing at all, and that's through the Dodd-Frank Act. The Dodd-Frank Act penalizes banks for having non-performing assets on their books. And the old method of, just foreclose on the non-performing loans doesn't work anymore because the cash reserves are 10 times what they have on their books. So, if a bank has $10 million in non-performing assets, they have to have 10 times $10 million sitting in an account that they can't touch, they can't lend, they can't do anything with. So it's a big penalty when the banks get to that threshold. So that's when everything switched over to the banks, and really Fannie Mae, because they're the ones who own these notes. That's why Fannie Mae sells, $8 billion worth of non-performing assets per year. Those are all bank originated, and you have very few foreclosures anymore by comparison in the United States. So that means the inventory load has shifted over to the note side. So that's another big driver. The thing that we're looking at most currently, there were some people in the industry projecting this huge wave of non-performing notes. And I'm like, no, not so fast. The forbearance programs that the government rolled out ultimately have done much better than previous plans back in 2008. So we had 7.2 million people in those programs, of which there's only about 2.1 million left. And the unknown factor is still, of those 2 million left in these programs, what percentage are not going to be able to make their payments again? And that's another driving force for what's happening. That we should start to see those in this first quarter of this year. And the other program now that has rolled out under the Patriot Act is going to blow this industry wide open again. And investors are going to have a great 2022 if they utilize this government program. And the government program goes back to what the government had back in 2008. They rolled out what was called the hardest hit funds. And it was a good thought process. It wasn't rolled out well. It was money that came from the Treasury given to the states, and then the states were supposed to deploy that capital to help people stay in their homes. And they didn't do a good job of getting that money out there. And I started looking about 2 years, and a half year ago, when the Biden administration was coming in. I started looking at who's their advisors, what are their feelings about real estate, and all this sort of stuff. And his chief advisor, is it Rubenstein, I think is his name? I might have that wrong. Anyway, I looked him up, and I looked up the presentation that he did for the National Board of Realtors. And one of the things that stood out to me was he was talking about this hardest hit fund program that was back through 2008, 9, 10 through 12. And he really liked that program. In fact, he said, I don't think it went far enough. So he's still his chief economic advisor now. And guess what? We have a new program, new name, and it's taking all of the best things from that older program and taking all the best components, and that's what they're activating right now. There's only about 5 states that have rolled it out. The rest are waiting for approval from the Treasury Department. So that's something I've been keen on for quite some time, and I don't know that really anybody has heard about it just yet, but it's something I've been studying. It's going to be a game changer.
Wow. So how is that going to affect us? What you mean for the investors, being that we would be owning notes that were maybe non-performing or something goofy, and that we'd have funds?
Yeah. So what this program does, each state's going to come up with how much they allocate. I believe I was looking at Michigan yesterday. In Michigan, I think is $40,000 per household maximum of assistance. So imagine some of those 2 million people who were under this forbearance plan. They haven't made a mortgage payment in over 2 years. That forbearance plan was supposed to last 3 months and went on for two years. And now it's finally, the plans are ending. So you've got people who haven't made a payment in 2 years, which is not a good habit for them to be in, because it's hard sometimes to get people started for paying again. So there's going to be some percentage of people who can't afford to pay. And of course, they run the risk of having their note accelerated, right? All of these mortgages that we buy, if you read into them, there's a note acceleration program. If somebody's late on a payment, you can say due in full, if they're 90 days late or what have you. So this government program, the goal is, well, how do we prevent these people from going into foreclosure? Well, simple. You catch them up on their loan, right? If you have a non-performing loan and you're you're going down the path of foreclosure with the borrower, and they come up with the money they owe you, okay, foreclosure's off. They don't have the money, but the government does. Okay, so if this was a non-performing note in Michigan, and somebody had a $70,000 home, they owe $50,000 on it, and you paid $40,000 for the note, and now you get these people to apply for this program. It takes about 90 days to process, or at least that's what it did when it was hardest hit funds. And then 90 days later, let's say they have an arrearage account of $35,000. Okay, just to pull it over. The government, the state, is going to give you the $35,000, the note holder, okay, to catch that person up. So now your $40,000 investment, you got $35,000 back, you got $5,000 into note. Now, depending upon the state, they may also say, well, our maximum is still $40,000. So we don't think they can afford their payment just yet. So we're going to pay you the other $5,000 by paying their monthly payments for the next whatever year. So you get guaranteed payments coming in from the government. Then that individual is responsible to start the payments on the note again.
Wow. It's like the hardest hit funds program was, right? But it seems like they learned some lessons.
They did.
Through the process.
They did. Yeah. Here in Florida, we were given back with hardest hit funds the second highest amount. California was first with 2 billion. Florida got 1 billion. And the program, the funds were supposed to be exhausted within, I believe, 3 years on the rollout. And halfway through, Florida hadn't spent more than a fifth of the money. And Florida didn't even have a phone number that people could call, and nobody knew about the program. And that's one of the things you see consistently with government programs like this. The intention is good, but the people who need it don't know about it.
Yeah.
So I was coaching people saying, you need to let your borrowers know that there's a program. Here's where you go to the Treasury Department. I used to look at the congressional report every single month. So I knew what states, what they were doing, what changes they were doing. And I was coaching, my clients and students and saying, you need to talk with your people and get them to apply, because it's going to help them stay in their home, but it's also, going to financially benefit you. And it once they got it rolling and they started to realize that any money by the new deadline that's not spent by the state goes back to the Treasury. And there's not a single politician on either side of the aisle that wants to be known as the one that had to give $700 million back to the Treasury that they could have spent on their citizens, saving their homes, So finally they exhausted those funds. A key difference this time around also, the hardest hit fund program back in 2008 was only money allocated. It was 8.2 billion allocated to 18 states plus Washington, D.C. That was it. This time around, it's almost 10 billion. It's $9.9 billion that's already been allocated, and every state gets a piece of that. Now, how those states roll it out, how they have people apply, how much the maximum is, that's what they have to get approved by the Treasury Department. So, and like I said, there's about 5 states now that have active programs, and the rest are in the process of getting approved.
That's awesome. Well, that's kind of good news for you guys that are out there owning notes, especially if you have people that are delinquent. I remember when I first got into the space, I didn't know really what I was doing, obviously. And so I bought non-performing notes, and I probably could have pursued getting some of my money back through the hardest hit funds, but I didn't, not even once, not even once. I thought, I look at it and I go, what was I thinking?
We had people who they got more money back on hardest hit fund than they paid for the note.
Yes, I heard stories like that.
I mean, it was absolutely a great program, and it helped a lot of people, but it also, your profits just go through the roof on something like that as well. And we're going to see a repeat of that. And I've had people, this program goes a little further also, by the way. It will pay a borrower's property taxes if they're delinquent. It'll pay their utilities if they're delinquent. One of them even will pay for their internet. What state was that I was looking at? I mean, so it's pretty interesting. I've had some people say, well, what about land contracts? Because hardest hit funds, there are only a few states that you could utilize hardest hit funds under land contracts, because they were a little more leery about the land contracts because of the way they're structured versus a regular note mortgage. But again, if you look at Michigan, it says the second bullet point on there, land contracts, manufactured homes, all of that applies to everything.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, this is great information, Kevin.
Of course. No, man, I knew it was, I'm telling you, I just knew it was coming back, because like on my online training videos, like the video 15 is on hardest hit funds. And somebody who had signed up for my program said, hey, you know what? The hardest hit fund's on there. And you did say in the video that it's going to be expiring, pretty soon. Just want to let you know you still have that video there. And I said, you know what? I'm keeping it there because I really think they're going to come up with a new program just like that. So I'm not removing it, even though it's expired. And it happened towards the end of last year.
So Kevin, do you think people maybe that don't know about this, don't have access to it, or whatever it may be, do you think that because of all these, I've heard them called ghost mortgages or legacy mortgages, like people still living in houses right now because maybe the note got traded with the watershed effect from fund to fund to fund. Then COVID hit, the restrictions of foreclosure and evictions got slapped on people. So there could be notes where people are still living there 4 or 5 years delinquent right now and kind of squatting in their own house because no one was able to make a move for so long.
Yep.
Do you think that because of that, and now that the moratoriums and everything got lifted federally, do you think that there's going to be a large influx of like REOs hit the market in the next year?
Well, I think what'll happen more than likely is someone will pick up the note. They're smart, get these people to apply for this program, because again, that's what it does. It's meant to catch them on their loan. Now, if somebody's been in there 5 years, and let's say, just to stick with Michigan for a minute, if somebody's been in their house for and haven't made a payment in 5 years, maybe they've built up an arrearage account of $50,000. Well, the most the state's going to pay is 40. That's the cap. But could you, if you bought the note cheap enough, like if you paid, I think in my example, you paid for 35 grand or whatever for the note, and you got 40,000, from Michigan, could you forgive the other 10? So the person can stay in their home and make payments. I mean, of course you could, and you would, so the states, a single state, yeah, but again, not all the data is, you guys are hearing this as it's happening right now. So there's still some unknown because not all the states have put their plans out for these things yet. But they will shortly. And it's, again, the whole thing is, how do we keep people in their homes? So they don't require you to do any loan modifications that I've seen yet, but you certainly can. And that's the name of the game. So it's going to be a very interesting 2022.
Seems like it really drives home the fact that as non-performing note investors, that the theory should always be to try to do what you can to keep somebody in their house and make it worthy for you as the investor. But boy, this program is really going to kick that into gear for us. That's insane. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's the industry, I think, is permanently now a bigger part of real estate. I mean, it going back 30 years ago, it was the same thing. It was like, you have real estate and then it's note thing. Now the note things become almost, they're not in real estate, where a lot of people eventually get to the note side once they see all the benefits and understand that inventory availability and price fluctuations and varying degrees of how you calibrate what these notes are worth and those sorts of things. It's really it's been neat to see, to say the least.
Yeah. Well, but still most don't even know where to get started, Kevin. You walk down the street and you talk to 10 people and say, hey, where can I go buy a promissory note? You're gonna get like, huh? You know what I mean? If I walk down the street and say, hey, who do you know that can help me buy a piece of real estate? Oh, here's my real estate agent. Who do you know that can help me buy stock? Oh, here's my stockbroker. Who do you know that can help me buy a note, mortgage note? So we're, even though, like you said, it's integrated, it's becoming integrated into the real estate industry. I think we're still ground floor. I really do.
Yeah, it's like you said, we're coming full circle to when you started. You're telling people to put videos and that sort of thing out there. And a gentleman in Orlando, I'm over in Winter Park, by the way, whoever that was.
That was Paul.
People will find a way once they hear it. So yeah, I don't think we're at a point the average person understands what a note is. Even people here and stuff that I meet, around where I live, they're like, well, what's a note? And I try to, it's funny, a lot of times I'll explain it. Here's another thing that's going on right now. You've noticed a lot of recording artists are selling their music rights, right? Bruce Springsteen did it. ZZ Top did it. We just had another one. There's a whole bunch of them doing that. David Bowie was actually the first one who did that. And he did that a decade ago. He got, every single year, and he sold Bowie bonds. You could actually buy them on Wall Street, and they paid 10%. And he set it up And again, this comes back with your insurance and your trust and everything like that. So you would buy, David Bowie sold for 10 years worth of royalties. So the investors who bought the Bowie bonds would get those royalties, which paid about 10% per year. And he promised the royalties for his next 2 albums. And then he went away, right? You didn't hear from Bowie for a time, but he did before he died, came out with 2 more albums. And all the royalties have been pre-sold from those. So he was really the first one who did that. And now you've got all these other artists that do that. Notes are everywhere. The lotteries, when we used to buy lotteries, you didn't have the full cash offer. You basically had to take the annuity. You had to take the, payments over 20 years or 30 years, depending upon the state. And we would, because it's public, we track down the lottery winners, and that's just, it's a note, it's a contract, right? And it's backed by the full faith of the state. So, we would track the people down and basically $30,000 a year for the next 30 years, or would you rather have 700,000 cash? So we used to do all of those and casino winnings. And oh, by the way, David Bowie had a massive life insurance policy on him, because if he died before he did those 2 albums, the investors would be out some money. So insurance plays a role in this too.
Insurance is a big, for me, that's a new thing. This in the last 6 or 8 months, maybe a year, that I've come to realize the role that insurance plays in wealth building, and especially in passing generational wealth. I just didn't get it for all those years, and so that's why I took a whole month to just kind of go through that with people.
Now, Des, I know I want to continue too with some more items that we can have Kevin cover here. I have a little sticky note in front of me. I want to get to some things, but I know Susan Malbin and Sal raised their hands. Susan first, so if you want to unmute, I think they have a question for you.
Hey, Susan.
Hey, Kevin, it's good to see you. Stacey and I are here in Miami with somebody that we have in foreclosure now. Is the program in Florida?
It is, but Florida is still waiting approval from the Treasury Department. So they haven't rolled out their program just yet. Once the Treasury approves it, then it will be. But yes, every state this time has money. I think Florida has 776 million.
Very cool.
Okay. And if somebody's in foreclosure, they can go and get it then?
They apply. The basic application is this. They have to be under some kind of financial hardship. Can't make more than 150% of the average income in their area. And those are the basic 2 guidelines. Now, some states might have some other criteria that they throw in there, but those are the two basic ones. Now, if the foreclosure happens before the program rolls out, can't do it. So it's got to be a matter of the program rolling out. So go to the state site in Florida, and most of the states right now have where you can your information and for notification. So and do that, and that way the state will email you and say the program is being launched, that sort of thing.
I'm sorry, you're saying that the person who is in foreclosure does it, or
they have to apply, correct? The borrower has to apply. So the person who's being foreclosed upon, they're the ones who are going to have to apply for that. If you wanted to track that program, you could go to the state site, and they'll have something on there where you can put in your name and email, and they'll notify you when the program updates.
Okay, and we'll stop the owner being foreclosed upon to get the funds.
No, they don't. They apply for the assistance. They apply for the help, but the note investor, whoever owns the debt, they are the ones who get the money. So the state doesn't pay the borrower and say, hey, now don't forget to give that to your mortgage company. Don't forget to give that to your note owner. They pay the note owner directly.
Thank you very much, Kevin.
There'd be a whole bunch of people with new cars and
yeah, exactly.
Go ahead, Sal.
Yeah, hi, Kevin. Sal here in McKinney, Texas. That's right. They're going to have the assistance program, right? And like you said, you bought a note for 30 grand. They pay you 40 grand, and they still might owe you 10 grand in arrears. And there's still going to be a percentage of people, like the example you gave was like they haven't made a payment in 5 years. Well, they're accustomed to living for free, right? I mean,
Yeah.
at some point. So you're still going to have, and it's not a bad thing, right? You're still going to have a percentage that you're going to have to see all the way through, correct? But at least this way you gave it, we get the old, and we're being the nice guy to a certain point, correct?
But also financially, if you have very little money or no money left in the deal, and let's say the state's been making somebody's payments for 12 months and it's time for them to take over, I mean, you could lower the payments down to something more affordable it's free money at that point in time. Now,
Sure.
The states will also look at this. If they run into a situation and maybe it's an elderly who's on Social Security in the house and they are on a fixed flat income and they're not able to afford that anymore, the state is going to look at that application and go, you know what, we're not going to make their mortgage payment for them for a period of time because we just see down the road they're going to be in the same situation and not be able to afford it. So they might come to you and say, here's the deal. The state maximum is $40,000. We'll give you $40,000 if you forgive the whole loan.
Oh, okay. So,
Okay.
yeah, okay. So
yep. Now, if you invested $35,000, obviously you take. If you invested 50, you're gonna. I can't do it.
So basically, that homeowner would end up being free. Now they own the. You're off the work. Hey, that's still a good deal though for you because.
Right. Now, the technical side of it, if you want to go a little deeper in this, is when they do something like that, there are conditional grants placed on the property. Because what they don't want to do is now that person owns the house free and clear, and they turn around and sell it. Walk away with the money. That's not how it works. So behind the scenes, there is a zero interest, zero payment grant lien placed on the property, and that is forgiven 1/5 over 5 years. So if they stay in there 5 years, they pay their property taxes, they've never had to make it away.
Ah, perfect. Cool.
Very good. Now, Kevin, I know like on your website, there's a subject that pops up, and I went and looked at your website again and everything, but it pops up, and it was something I looked at and said, well, maybe there's a lot of people that are here live, or maybe even other folks that are going to watch this replay that would say, what do you mean, Kevin, that you can purchase notes with only $500?
The $500 technique, really, 500 is just a number. It could be zero. 500 to make people think about it, because if you put zero, then everybody's like, you can't do that. But 500, there must be something to it. So it's really just kind of a marketing type of number, because the reality is, again, it goes back to a statement I said earlier, which was having the ability to identify a deal. If you can go out and find a note and get that note under contract and then have a buyer and put the two together and you make the spread. Right? It's like just doing an arbitrage deal. You get it under contract for 30 grand. You don't have the 30 grand. They do. In fact, they have 35, and that's still going to work well for them to get their expected yield. So they're paying 35, or gets 30, the note seller gets 30, and you get the 5,000. I mean, that's how I started in the business. I didn't have money to invest in notes. I knew how to find them. I knew how to research them. And eventually, like I said, I built a bird dog network by selling my training, so people would find deals, send them to me, and that's how I was able to make that scalable. So that's one way you can do it. And then from there, because it's a free video, the one you're talking about, that sends you like a little free video link, and of course partials is a part of that, where maybe you invest in that you found the note seller, again, $30,000 note, but you're going to kick in 500. And they're going to kick in, your other investor is going to kick in the rest. And then for your $500, you own the back end of that note. So that's another way to do it. And so that's really what it is. It's for those who are not familiar with that, but I'm assuming your audience is. It's like wholesaling a house, right? Plenty of investors started in real estate by wholesaling houses. found the house, got it under contract, brought it to a buyer, and made a fee. And it works the same way in the notes.
Is there a difference, Kevin, when we put these three on paper, when you say note broker, wholesale a note, or note dealer?
You do want to stay away from the term broker in this business. You will eventually get a cease and desist letter, as I learned 20 something years ago. Because the way the law is written, there is a licensed position called a mortgage broker and a real estate broker. So in those positions, if a prudent person, as they put it, could get the idea that you're a licensed mortgage broker, you're not, you could be liable for that. Okay. So in business, we use the term broker because that's what you're doing. Broker brings buyer and seller together for a fee. But if you're putting on your website or business cards and whatever marketing pieces, social media, whatever it is that you're doing, stay away from that term broker. You're a note investor. Okay. And what you do with it, whether you invest it in yourself or with others or give it to another investor is up to you, but stay away from the term broker outside of people in the industry.
So a couple things here we'll cover real quick. We've got about 10 minutes left or so, and I want to be able to open it up so that some more people can ask questions of you or Desi. But you're obviously a great educator. You're clearly one of the better educators in the industry. Speak clearly and concisely, and you're easy to listen to. So you have a podcast now, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is this the one called Real Estate Without Renters, or is it
Real Estate Without Renters? Yeah.
Okay. So if folks want to hear more from you and kind of follow along and be able to get some of these podcast episodes to listen to and dive in more there, how would they go and find your podcast or listen to those?
Wherever you normally get podcasts. So if you use your Apple app or what have you, you can search by my name or Real Estate Without Renters. You can find it that way. It's broadcast wherever they are. I even put them on my website, which is same thing, realestatewithoutrenters.com. That's kind of my brand. It's after my books on Amazon. And came out a couple of years ago, hit #1 in about 4 categories. So that's out there as well. Also on YouTube, and getting what Desi was telling you all, consistency is the key if you're going to do social media. I started doing it's actually my wife's site. I walk everywhere around Winter Park here. I mean, I've got every place I can go, shopping to post office or whatever. It's all here. And as I walk every day, I'll just do a note investor tip of the day. And I probably have well over 100 of them. And I don't do it every day, but just about, 4 days a week or so. And again, it's minute, 10 seconds maybe. And I do little tips. But if you go on my YouTube channel, I've got some of those. I've got some lengthier videos and things like that as well. So you can go on YouTube and just search my name, go to my channel, because you'll find if you just search my name, you'll be, a whole bunch of stuff in different places. If you're just looking for me in the tip of the day, I put those out on Twitter and LinkedIn and Facebook as well.
So your book is also called Real Estate Without Renters?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you can get his book on Amazon, Real Estate Without Renters. Go to his website. Your website is kevinshortle.com, right?
It's either one. It redirects you. So it's my name, kevinshortle.com or realestatewithoutrenters.com. And I believe it leads you to the same place. And if I don't know what your policy is, but I can even put my calendar link if somebody wants to have a conversation with me or something like that. I can put that up too.
Go ahead and type your calendar link into the chat if anybody wants to get a hold of you and talk with you. That's perfectly fine. And why don't we go ahead and since we have about eight minutes left or so, if anybody wants to unmute and you have a question either for Desi or for Kevin, feel free to chime in.
Let's see here.
Yeah, we have no problem with you putting your information in there, Kevin. We tell our team, you need more resources than just us. Okay, this is an industry. You need to be known, and so to have an opportunity to speak to someone at Kevin's level is huge. And I know some of you guys are so new that you might feel weird just even trying to reach out to him, but he's giving you his link. Take advantage of it. Don't waste his time. But you can certainly talk to them. I assume, Kevin, that they can call you and just have a conversation, for a few minutes about notes. And so, yeah, I mean, it's fabulous, guys, to have that opportunity.
Smitty has a question. What's up, Smitty?
Hey, Kevin, how's it going?
Good.
Hello,
How are you?
I'm good, sir. You were talking about the hardest hit funds state. That's what was the new program called? Because I looked up a couple, and I was just wanting to get the actual name that it's called. And the second question
Homeowners
is
Financial Assistance Program.
okay. And then the second question is do you go to each state to figure out the status, or does it all come from the Treasury itself? Like the status of each state. So I've got something I want to do in Wisconsin.
Okay.
I just looked up Wisconsin and they said it's coming. But so for example, if it's coming, do you have, I guess I got 3 questions now. So coming, do I need to look somewhere else if they have another program in place before it comes? Because I'm trying
No,
to.
you just have to wait until the program rolls out. So what they did, if you look it up on the Treasury Department website, they'll have a link there that will show you what about all the different states.
Oh, okay.
So you can look it up that way, and whether they're rolled out yet or not. So again, it's kind of like early breaking news, right? It's not quite approved or not. The details, I'm still trying to paste that link. I don't know why my computer's not copying here. I'll have to type it. Not all the states have been approved yet, so they're still going through the Treasury Department to do that.
Okay.
So you gotta hang in there. Like I said, most of the states have on their website, and since you were just on the Wisconsin one, which I don't think I've looked at specifically on that one, did they have a place where it says, to fill out your information and they'll send you up?
They get a place that where you can email, you can sign up, or a place where you can sign up.
Yeah, that's what I thought, because most states have done that. Yeah.
I think Brandy has a question, Patrick.
Yeah. Brandy was just asking, if you purchase a note after the HFA fund starts, can you still qualify for the program? And I can try to take that cover you, but I think it's the borrower that's behind that is qualifying for the program. Doesn't matter when you bought their note. Is that correct?
Correct. And that's why when you're looking for notes, if it's a fully performing note, there's no arrears or anything. Just that program doesn't apply. So note investors who want that passive, just easy notes to go, hey, wait a minute, maybe I will look at some sub-performing or non-performing notes because of this program. And your activity on that, and you can work with your servicing company too, and they may send out, depending upon if you buy the note and the program's already launched, your servicing company by federal law has to let them know that the note owner's changed anyhow. So they're going to be sending a mail piece to the borrower, and have the servicing company include that. I would encourage you, if your servicing company's not doing that, or you want to go a different way and really get it noticed, you can hire a door knocker for like $75, and they can physically send somebody to the house with a envelope, and say, hey, here's this, go to this program. All of the states are going to have flyers really that explain the program. It'll have phone numbers on there. It'll have the website on there. So your job, through either your own efforts or through party efforts, is to educate that consumer, the borrower, that this program is available. I remember many occasions, like I said, with the hardest hit fund one, where people didn't believe it. You had to convince them, no, this is real. You have to apply. And the other mystery, by the way, it is the borrower. The other mystery is, why didn't the banks encourage their borrowers to apply for these programs? The bank could have got that money. Just because the banks don't have the focus. When you guys buy a note, you have focus. You want to get that thing worked out. And that's why it worked exceptionally well.
Another question, and this will be the last one before we stop the meeting here for this Saturday. But it says if you take the money from the program as the lender, and the borrower qualifies, the state helps give you the money as the lender to catch them up to current, and all of that. After that, as the lender, if you've accepted those funds based on this program, can you still, after that, at some point, foreclose on them? And I believe the answer is yes, but you can expound on it.
Correct. Yes. So, and again, a state may come out and change something, but my belief would be that all the states, that's why they evaluate it. If they just feel that the person's not going to have the capability to pay, they might make a full pay offer or a maximum offer, and you could accept it or reject it. But let's say the people did get money and then they're supposed to pay on that note again. Yeah, your note hasn't changed. They still sign that agreement. You still have your security agreement that enables you to foreclose if they don't pay. Now, again, what you may do, depending upon your numbers and how you're working it out, if I have very little or no money left in a note, I got all my capital back, I can really work with people. And if I say, look, for the next year, what can you afford? And we'll do that. We'll revisit it another year. So you can do temporary mods and things like that. So I would encourage y'all to look at that first.
Awesome stuff, Kevin. Again, thanks so much. And we usually have a tradition that we do at the end of these things, especially for wonderful guest speakers like you that took the time to share with us today. And everybody usually kind of unmutes and then gives you a big old thank you so much, Kevin Shortle.
Right. Let's blast Kevin, guys.
Thank you, buddy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Appreciate
You're
it.
welcome.
Bye.
You're welcome.
I'm moving to Florida.
Yeah.
I'm already in Florida.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, I may be visiting
Gotta
Florida
get
here in
there.
a week or two.
This is the place to be.
All right, you guys. Well, thank you all so much for joining us today. Kevin, again, thank you so much, sir. We really appreciate having you here. And I really appreciate what you do for the industry, just in general. I mean, I always have, Kevin.
I appreciate that.
You do so much for the industry. So thank you for that as well. God bless all you guys. Enjoy your weekend. Go out and enjoy your families. That's why we do this stuff, right? So that we can have good times with our families when we're not working. So go out and do that, guys. And I'll see you guys all next week.